everybody, and welcome to the Kidney Coach YouTube channel. I'm naturopathic Dr. Fiona Chin, co-founder of the Kidney Coach and our supplement range Cargenesis. And I am joined again today by the amazing, beautiful Kelly Csom. Kelly is a renal dietitian with an expertise in diabetes, all things diabetes, type 1 and type 2, and she works for the Kidney Nutritional Institute alongside some of her amazing colleagues. Kelly, welcome again. I always love catching up with you.
Yes, always fun to be here, Fiona.
And you've had your hair done. You're looking fabulous as always.
Oh, thank you.
So I thought today, we would talk about HbA1c and what that means, because I think, one of the things I say with my patients are often their doctors are testing their fasting glucose and making decisions off that. And obviously when we talk, we're obviously always talking about HbA1c and using that as a reader. And number one, and maybe it's an Australian thing, why are doctors not checking that more often and using that as the marker and feedback, and what it is, what it means, what influences it, all of those things. So all things HbA1c, Miss Kelly Csom, let's go.
All right, sounds great. So let's start with, what is HbA1c? So that stands for a hemoglobin A1c. You might also hear it called a, let me get this right, because I never say it right. No, wait a minute. I'm not saying it right. The glycosylate, I can't say the word.
I know, it's a great big long word. I know what word you're trying to say.
Anyway, what it means is it's about the sugar molecule, or the glucose, and how much it attracts or sticks to the hemoglobin molecule in the blood, okay? Yeah. So the more sugar that attaches to the hemoglobin, the higher your A1C is going to be, okay? So
it's all about this, right?
Exactly. So your hemoglobin A1C is an average blood sugar. It is over a period of time of 3 months. So think like a batting average in baseball, okay? It is an average. Now, they can use the A1C, or the hemoglobin A1C, to diagnose you with prediabetes and diabetes. So a normal A1C, and it always comes in a percentage. So when you see a percent, just know that is how it is read and put together, because again, it's an average, right? So a normal A1C is going to be anything under 5.7. So 5.6 or lower is going to be absolutely a normal A1C. Now, if it runs 5.7 to 6.4, that's going to be prediabetes. Mm-hmm. So that means your chance of ending up with type 2 diabetes is very strong in the next 3 to 5 years. So it's kind of like, this is going to age me, but there was a show called Lost in Space, and there was a robot, and he'd go, "Warning, Will Robinson, warning." It's kind of your warning, Will Robinson moment, okay? So it's time to make those lifestyle changes so you can avoid being diagnosed with diabetes. Unfortunately, once you're diagnosed, you have it for life. You might be really controlled. You might be in what's called diabetes remission, where your A1C comes under 5.7. That's diabetes remission, and you're off your medications, but you still have diabetes. It is a progressive disease that is not curable at this time, but it can be extremely well controlled. Okay. Now, good, the bad, and the ugly. This is an average. If your doctor does some blood work, right? They do a comprehensive metabolic panel, pretty common thing to get. You're going to have a glucose on there. Well, if you didn't fast, it's not going to tell us all that much. No. But if you were fasting because you had your lipids done, and if that number is over 120 at 126 or higher, and they do that test twice, they can diagnose you with diabetes with that as well. So those are all indicators or markers to officially diagnose someone with diabetes. So if you're seeing those and it was a fasting, then yes, we're starting to have elevated blood sugars. Okay. Our body should normally regulate that if we don't have any blood sugar issues going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the American Diabetes Association and many of the diabetes organizations out there have a standard of keeping your A1C under 7.0. As you go above 7, you increase your risk for diabetes complications. So a few of those would be blindness, amputations, cardiovascular disease, strokes, heart attacks, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Neuropathy, which we've talked about in the past, is a really horrible nerve pain, especially in your feet and your hands. Mm-hmm. So again, anything above there is increasing the risk. So, but if you're starting at, let's say, a 9, every time you reduce that by 1%, you're greatly diminishing your risk for complications. So if you have a little ways to go, don't freak out. Complications don't happen overnight. It happens over time. Mm-hmm. So just work on getting that down. Now, I say the standard is under 7. However, depending on your age and your medical diagnosis, you and your healthcare provider are going to set personal goals. For example, if you're 80 years old and you have a history of falls, under 7.0 may be too low because of risk of low blood sugars, which could cause you to fall. So that's just one example of someone who may have a little higher and maybe an over 7 goal because of their situation. Okay. So definitely want to talk with your healthcare team about what your goals are. But remember, this is an average blood sugar over 3 months. And by the way, if your goal together with your provider is 7 or less, until that is 7 or less, you should be having that done every 3 months until you get it controlled. Most insurance out there will pay for you to have that done every 3 months. Okay, in the United States. So that's a pretty standard practice. Now, here's the problem with a hemoglobin A1C. It's an average. So I've had folks in the last 20 years that had a bunch of highs and a bunch of lows. So guess what the average looked like? Beautiful, perfect. But they weren't in the range where we'd like to see them. So we call this window of range. For most people, it's going to be 70 to 180 is that window. For tighter control, that's going to be 70 to 140. Okay. Again, set that goal with your provider. You want to be in that range at least 70%. That reduces, again, chances of complications and all kinds of ugly that can come with diabetes. So you have a good A1C, but having a bunch of these highs and lows is not going to help us. So again, go and watch our video on a CGM or go out and get a glucometer. Most insurance will pay for that. Or again, you can go to places like Walmart and get them for very cheap nowadays. And make sure you're monitoring, meaning you're testing your blood sugar, maybe the first couple of weeks, a couple of times a day. So we want first thing in the morning, because our fasting is important. That's how a lot of your doctors are going to change your medicine. They're also the last blood sugars to get their bottom in control sometimes. Okay. Then we want to test 2 hours after our biggest meals. Okay. So try 2 hours after lunch one day. Maybe the next day you try 2 hours after dinner. And then once in a while, try at bedtime. Or if you're feeling weird in the middle of the night, get up and test and make sure that you're not having some things go on where we can drop in the middle of the night. And then by the time we wake up, it's gone sky high. Okay. So there's different phenomenons that go on that can cause that in our body. So those are some great examples of to check it out, just to make sure. That's why the CGM is good, because it's testing 24 hours. So you're able to see any weird shifts and patterns. Okay.
I'm such a fan of CGMs. I've got so many patients wearing them at the moment, and they're not diabetic. I might be working with something else, but just because we're looking at food allergies or stress levels or all of those sort of things.
Yes.
So.
And I remembered the word finally. It's, oh, now I just forgot it. Glycosylated. Sorry, folks, I could not get that out of my mouth today. But yeah, that's all it means, is that the sugar is sticking to the hemoglobin. And again, the more that it sticks, and you can see it in the test tube, it looks like molasses. It gets really thick and syrupy in there. So it's kind of interesting to look at from a scientific perspective as well. Now, you asked me something else about the A1C. What was it that you asked me, Fiona? Do you remember?
I would have been probably how it relates to kidney disease. And is there, and maybe it was something else, but I'm thinking now, is there a marker where we know that, because as you said, it becomes sticky and molasses, that's really what the kidneys are then filtering. It's one of the reasons that diabetes has such an impact on kidney disease. But is there a marker that you like to keep people below to prevent kidney disease, or if they've got kidney disease? You're talking about below 7, but is there a marker when we've got active kidney disease that you can see people really start to improve their kidney function or reverse or
again, I would go the standards for diabetes. Well controlled is going to be under 7. Mm-hmm. For some folks that are fairly healthy and don't have a lot of other complications, medical diagnosis going on, I would want to have you under 6.5, because again, the tighter that control for that window of folks that fit into that fairly healthy, decent window, the less inflammation we have. And the less inflammation, the less impact we have on the kidneys. So that's going to be really, really important. I've seen that inflammation affect so many things, especially things like anemia. Some, mild to moderate anemia can be just from inflammation, and not that we're not getting enough iron or vitamin C or folate. It's just we're so inflamed, our body is not able to really process and show those results.
Yeah, that's such a great comment. It's funny, I've just been reviewing that for the webinar that's coming up online, and yeah, that's exactly right, that inflammation is such a driver of kidney disease, and we forget that, but it's a side effect of having diabetes, high blood sugar.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention is some offices have a fast-acting hemoglobin test that looks just like a glucometer that they do right in the office. Those are great, but always make sure that you have an A1C done from a blood draw, not just a finger stick. They're a little more accurate. So again, just to make sure as we're monitoring, and again, your insurance should pick that up, that we're getting those done and really keeping an eye on those things. Okay.
So the other thing I'm hearing too is if you get an elevated HbA1c reading, that probably having a CGM is a really good idea to make sure that you're not one of these people that is just bouncing all over the place with maybe just reactive blood sugar levels, that you're going high, low, or if you're having a normal reading, but you still suspect you've got symptoms of diabetes or pre-diabetes, to do a CGM as well for that exact same reason.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Yeah, digging into it to really find out what's spiking it, what's changing it. And then if you're diabetic, we've got so many videos on ways that you can work with that. But HbA1c being the primary 3-month average that your doctors are going to look at, probably daily tests using a CGM is going to give us a lot more information.
It's pretty standard of practice for monitoring and making sure that your diabetes is well controlled. The other thing that I wanted to mention, we mentioned another video, surprising things that raise your blood sugar, so you might want to check that out. But also, just as a quick review, anytime your body is coming against an attack, right? You have an infection, you get COVID, you have some kind of bug that always comes up, in the winter time. That is going to raise your A1C. So don't freak out if that's up. That doesn't mean you've been sitting back and drinking a, 2-liter of Mountain Dew. It can be other things. Again, I've seen people with a dental infection or a foot infection. We have some videos, we've talked about that in the past together.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, that definitely infection and any of those things that causes stress to your body and changes to cortisol and inflammatory markers.
Yes,
sugar,
absolutely.
so.
Absolutely.
Very good point. Anything else you want to add about beautiful HbA1c?
No, I'd just say it's very important. Make sure you know what your number is, because that's a good way to know if you're in control. And make sure you're partnering with your healthcare team. Make sure that they're not just telling you, oh, you're great. Ask them to explain why. Ask them to show you the labs. Make sure you understand your labs, because that will empower you for better self-care.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think it all comes down to that self-care. You know, I was talking to my yoga instructor yesterday, and his partner was in the UK with his dad, and his dad had gone into hospital with a blood sugar event. And when they were reviewing all his files, he was in kidney disease. No one had told him. He was in state, you know, what we normally know about kidney disease, stage 3B, I think it was, maybe in stage 4, with, you know, not out of control diabetes. It was pre-diabetic, so maybe in the high 6s, but again, enough for him. And there was underlying kidney disease there. So chicken or the egg, not sure which one came first, but they didn't know his lab. So he didn't have that empowerment to be able to self-care and look after that, because it wasn't explained to him and passed on. So I think that's such a great point. Knowing your labs and understanding them and where your body's at just gives you power back to be able to make life and dietary changes that will help you for the better. So
yeah, and just remember, if the cells are not being fed energy from the glucose that they're supposed to get to make energy in your body, then eventually they die off. Well, guess what? Your kidneys are made of cells too. So it can cause issues in the cells of the pancreas. That's where that damage is done slowly over time. It's not done in a week. Don't freak out because you were at Ben and Jerry's all week, okay?
Between Ben and Jerry's and Mountain Dew, it's not a good look, is it?
Moderation, people, moderation. Nobody's perfect in this world. Just find that middle ground, and take that baby step. Find that one thing that you're like, you know what? I'm going to start with these snacks because these are easier for me to find a substitution for, or I'm going to cut those back this week. And so just, again, small changes hugely will impact your blood sugar. You will be shocked at how just little tiny things that you thought, oh, that won't even make a difference, can take you down 1, 2, 3 points in your A1C, depending on how high it is. So
yeah, so true. Okay, well, if anyone wants to work with Kelly, you can find all her details on the kidneynutritionalinstitute.org website. I'll put them below. Kelly is an expert in all things diabetes. And am I allowed to say, I think there's an upcoming diabetic program being released at the end of the year. Am I allowed to mention that? Am I ahead of the time there?
Yes. Big surprise. So January, we're going to launch a diabetes keto program. And so it's going to be great. It's going to be a 12-week group program, and be looking for things to come out maybe November, December, to kind of encourage early signups. And it's really going to be great. We have used these techniques in this program with several of our private patients. And like I shared in the last time, I had somebody who was on over 80 units of long-acting insulin and around the same of mealtime insulin. And in 3 weeks doing a keto plant-based diet, he was off all insulin.
That's amazing. That's like scratching your head, doctor's surprise stuff. I think that's great. Well, if you come on, Fiona. I'll put the link below. You and I have we're today.
We do.
Below to the Kidney Nutritional Institute. If you're interested in joining us in a program, you can reach out to the team via email, ask them to put you on their email database and list so they can email you when the program's ready to launch and you want to sign up. That is what I was trying to say.
And we are perfectly imperfect here. So again,
exactly.
We're real down to earth people. We just really want to make an impact and really want to help you to live a healthy life and to live your best high quality life.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. That's so true. You know, that's genuinely what we're here for. So hopefully you find all of our information useful. Kelly, as always, you're an angel, and it's always great to catch up with you and hear your wisdom on all things diabetes and kidney disease. Thank you for joining me. If there's anything you want Kelly specifically to talk about, if you want to know more about the keto program, let us know in the comments below. I can connect you with Kelly, or we can do another podcast about it if that's something that you guys want to hear about. If you want to know more about what we do, head to www.kidneycoach.com. All our supplements are there as well. And you can also head to our Facebook page, our Instagram page, all of those sort of things. And it's all there as well. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. That way you'll get notified anytime we put out new videos. Kelly, thanks for being imperfectly perfect to you. I will see you next time. And I want to thank everyone for being part of our community. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.